Bullied by her biased family, the Maid is now the powerful vampire king's treasure, and they regret it. The sun had already disappeared behind the jagged mountains when Alara hurried through the long corridors of her family's grand manor. The house was huge, filled with gilded mirrors, tall ceilings, and cold marble floors that reflected every sound she made. Her footsteps echoed like whispers of her insignificance. Though the manor was beautiful to outsiders, to her it was a place that reminded her daily of her worthlessness. Her family never hid their feelings. Every day her mother would frown at her clumsy attempts to clean, her siblings would whisper cruel remarks, and servants would give her pitying looks. "Elara, why are you so slow?" her brother sneered just yesterday. "Even a child could do this faster." Elara had learned to keep her head low, to speak softly, and to never expect praise. But she was not weak. She had a quiet strength, a heart that refused to break entirely under their constant criticism. Every day she dreamed of a life where she would be seen, respected, and valued, not mocked or ignored. That evening she carried a heavy candelabra through the manor's forbidden tower. The upper floors were rarely used, and most of the household avoided them because of rumors of ghosts and shadows that moved on their own. Elara, however, had no fear of such stories. To her, the tower was just another place to do her work, and if the shadows were real, she thought, perhaps they were kinder than her family. As she reached the top floor, the air grew cold and heavy. A strange mist curled around the stone walls. She shivered, not from fear, but from the realization that something unusual was happening. The candelabra flickered and went out suddenly, plunging her into darkness. Then came a sudden crash. A trapdoor hidden beneath the floorboards had been triggered, and she nearly fell into the black void below. Panic surged through her, but she caught herself on the edge just in time. Her hands trembled. How had such a trap been set in her own home? Who wanted to hurt her, or was it meant for someone else? Before she could think further, a voice like silk and steel filled the tower. "Careful, little one." Elara froze. The voice was calm but carried power, a presence that made her heart beat faster and her thoughts scatter. From the shadows, a tall figure emerged. He moved with grace that seemed almost unreal, his black cloak flowing behind him as though alive. His eyes shone with a strange red glow in the dim light, and his face was pale, flawless, and almost frightening in its beauty. I, she stammered, unable to speak clearly. "You are brave," he said softly, yet every word carried weight. Most would have fallen into the trap or screamed. Elara felt a mixture of fear and awe. She had heard stories of Lord Kale, the vampire king, who ruled the night and collected treasures not of gold, but of rare humans who possessed hidden strength, courage, or wisdom. Few had ever seen him, and those who did rarely spoke of it again. Who are you?" she whispered. "I am Kale," he replied, his voice echoing in the tower. "And you, Elara, are more remarkable than anyone in your household has ever noticed." Elara felt her chest tighten. Remarkable. Could he truly see her, understand her in a way no one else ever had? Kale reached out a hand, not to grab, but as if offering an unspoken invitation. "Come with me. There is a place where you will no longer be underestimated, a place where your value will be recognized." Her mind raced. Leave her home, leave the life she had known, even if it was cruel. And yet, the thought of a place where she might be seen, appreciated, even treasured, stirred something deep within her. A spark of hope, fragile but undeniable. With a hesitant step, she placed her hand in his. The moment their skin touched, a warmth unlike any she had ever felt spread through her body. The tower seemed to shimmer, the mist curling around them, and then everything blurred. When she opened her eyes, she was no longer in the manor. Towering black walls surrounded her, polished to an unnatural shine. Flickering torches lined the halls, casting shadows that moved as if alive. She realized with awe and fear that she had been brought to Kale's castle, the place spoken of in whispers, a fortress of legend. Kale led her through the hallways, his presence commanding yet protective. "This is your new home," he said simply. "Here, you will learn your true worth." Alara's heart swelled with a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. She had left a life of ridicule and neglect, but now she faced a world she barely understood. The castle seemed alive, watching, judging, and waiting for her to take her place within its ancient halls. They stopped in a grand library, walls lined with towering bookshelves filled with tomes of magic, history, and secrets lost to time. Kale's eyes softened as he looked at her. "You have potential," he said, "not just to survive here but to thrive, to become something even you have not imagined." Alara swallowed hard. She wanted to believe him, to trust that she was finally stepping into a life where she could matter. But doubt lingered. Was this truly a place for her, or another trap? The fear and longing waged war in her heart. That night, as she lay in a simple bed in a chamber that overlooked the moonlit courtyard, Alara could not sleep. The castle was alive with whispers, and she felt both exposed and protected. Every shadow seemed to watch her, every sound a reminder that she was far from home. Yet for the first time in her life, she did not feel invisible. She felt seen. As dawn approached, Kale appeared at the window. The early light made his pale skin glow, and his red eyes caught hers with an intensity that left her breathless. "You were underestimated for too long," he said quietly. "Here, that will never happen again. You are mine to guide, to protect, to treasure if you are willing to take it." Alara's hands trembled, but her resolve strengthened. This was her chance. Not only to escape her family's cruelty, but to discover her own strength, courage, and perhaps even destiny. And yet, as she looked back at him, a flicker of uncertainty crossed her mind. Could she trust him fully? Could she trust anyone after a lifetime of betrayal, neglect, and mockery? Kale seemed to read her thoughts, his gaze both gentle and commanding. "Trust is earned, little one," he said. "And you will find that some of the greatest truths come from those who challenge you the most." Alara nodded, silently accepting the challenge. She did not yet understand the trials that awaited her, the mysteries of the vampire world, or the dangers that lurked in shadows. But for the first time she felt a fire within her, a courage that no cruel word, no mocking glance could ever extinguish. And so her journey began. From a life of ridicule, she had been taken into a world of power, darkness, and wonder. The maid who had been ignored, bullied, and belittled was now stepping into the castle of the vampire king. The first step toward becoming something far greater than anyone, even herself, had ever imagined. As the moon rose high in the sky, casting silvery light across the castle towers, Alara whispered to herself, "I will not be forgotten. I will not be weak. I will be seen." Unseen by her, Kale watched from the shadows, a faint smile on his lips. "She has fire in her soul," he murmured. "Perhaps even I have underestimated her." And at that moment, a distant echo of laughter, her family's laughter, reached the castle walls. But this time it did not wound her. Instead, it reminded her of how far she had come. And somewhere deep inside, she felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that the maid they had despised was no longer theirs to control. The night deepened, shadows twisted, and the castle hummed with life. A story had begun, one of courage, transformation, and the bond between a maid who had nothing to lose and a vampire king who had everything to protect. And far below, in the distant mountains, whispers of her family's regret began to stir. The next morning, Alara awoke to a soft golden light filtering through the tall arched windows of her new chamber. For a moment she forgot where she was, the grandeur of the castle almost dreamlike. Her heart still raced from the events of the previous night, how she had been whisked away from her family's manor and brought here, to Kale's castle, a place of shadows and mystery. She had expected fear to cling to her, but instead she felt something new, a quiet sense of curiosity, and more than that, a spark of hope. Perhaps this world would finally see her for who she truly was. As she rose from the bed, Kale appeared at the doorway, his presence commanding yet not threatening. The red glow of his eyes softened in the morning light. "You slept well," he observed, his voice smooth and measured. "Good. Today your lessons begin." Alara nodded, feeling a mixture of nerves and excitement. Lessons. She did not yet understand what kind of lessons a vampire king could teach a maid, but the thought thrilled her. Maybe these lessons would help her grow stronger, inside and out. Kale led her through the castle, past hallways lined with towering statues, their eyes seeming to follow every step. "You must learn to see things others cannot," he said, "to understand both danger and opportunity before they arrive. The world outside these walls is cruel. Power belongs to those who recognize it, and strength is often found in unexpected places." Alara listened carefully, every word sinking into her heart. For years, she had been told she was powerless, that she would never amount to anything. Now, in Kale's presence, she felt that belief slipping away. They arrived at a large chamber filled with mirrors and torches. The mirrors reflected her image endlessly, and the torches, flames flickered as though alive. Kale gestured for her to stand in the center. "Today you will begin with perception," he said. "Learn to trust what you see and what you feel. Many walk through life blind, even when the truth is in front of them." Alara took a deep breath and nodded. She stepped forward, focusing on her reflection, then on the shadows around her. As she did, she felt something strange. The castle seemed to respond. Shadows shifted, not threatening but as if watching, guiding her movements. "You are doing well," Kale said, a faint smile on his lips. "Few can sense the subtle currents of the world, most remain oblivious, but you notice. That is why you are here." Alara felt a small surge of pride. Even Kale, who seemed to see everything, recognized something unique in her. She had never felt such acknowledgement before. The day passed quickly, filled with lessons that challenged her mind and spirit. Kale taught her how to move silently through the halls, how to observe without being noticed, and how to read the intentions of others. Each lesson was subtle but profound. By evening, Alara's confidence had grown. She was not the timid, ignored maid anymore. She was learning to become something more. During a break, they walked through the castle's courtyard, where silver fountains glistened under the moonlight. The night was calm, but there was a strange energy in the air. Kale stopped and looked at her, his expression unreadable. "You have courage, Alara, but courage alone is not enough. You must also learn patience and wisdom. One day, you may need to make choices that will affect more than just yourself." Alara nodded, understanding the weight of his words. She had never considered that her actions might hold such power that she could influence events beyond her own life. It was both frightening and exciting. As they walked, Kale spoke of his past, though carefully, revealing only fragments. "I have made mistakes," he admitted. "Mistakes that cost me dearly. Trust must be earned, yes, but even I can learn from others who show strength and integrity." Alara looked at him, surprised. Even a being as formidable as Kale had vulnerabilities. It reminded her that power did not mean perfection, that even the strongest could be shaped by those who dared to stand beside them. The next morning, Kale brought her to the castle's library, a vast room that seemed endless, filled with ancient books, scrolls, and artifacts. "Knowledge is power," he said, "but only if you learn to interpret it, to apply it wisely. There is magic here that few humans can understand, but I believe you can." Alara ran her fingers over the spines of the books, feeling a thrill she had never known. Here she could learn, grow, and become someone worthy of respect, not just from Kale but from herself. Days turned into weeks. Each lesson tested her patience, her focus, and her courage. Kale's presence was both challenging and comforting. He never allowed her to become complacent, yet he also never undermined her confidence. With every passing day, Alara felt herself transforming, her inner strength emerging like a fire long hidden. But it was not only Kale who changed. He too seemed affected by her presence. His stern demeanor softened when she succeeded, and he became more willing to share glimpses of his true self. Sometimes, when they were alone, he would speak quietly of the burdens of his position, the loneliness of immortality, and the weight of decisions that affected countless lives. Ilara listened, offering silent understanding, and Kale, who had trusted few in centuries, found himself opening his heart to her in small, meaningful ways. One evening, while they studied a particularly ancient tome, Ilara discovered something remarkable. A letter, hidden within the pages, mentioned a family name she recognized instantly, her family. It spoke of an old debt, of a wrong that had been committed against Kale long ago. The letter suggested that her family had once played a role in events that had harmed him. Ilara felt a shiver run down her spine. Could it be true? Could her family have been involved in something that caused harm to the Vampire King? She looked up at Kale, who seemed to sense her thoughts. "Curiosity is good," he said softly, "but caution is better. There are truths that can guide you and truths that can endanger you if you are not careful. You must decide which to pursue." Ilara nodded, feeling a mixture of fear and determination. She could not ignore what she had discovered. If her family had caused harm, even unknowingly, she would need to face them, not with anger but with wisdom and courage. As days passed, she began to explore the castle on her own, testing her skills, observing the world, and learning to navigate the complex dynamics of Kale's domain. She met other beings who lived in the shadows, allies of Kale who were wary of humans but curious about her. Each encounter was a lesson in diplomacy, perception, and self-confidence. One night, during a quiet walk on the castle balcony, Kale approached her. The moonlight painted his face in silver, highlighting the sharp lines and the red glow of his eyes. "You have grown stronger than I anticipated," he said, "and in doing so, you have begun to change me as well. I find myself less certain of what I can endure alone." Ilara felt a warmth in her chest. She realized that their connection was more than teacher and student. It was something deeper, something that could neither be named nor fully understood, yet it was undeniable. Suddenly, a shadow moved in the courtyard below. Kale's expression hardened, his instincts alert. "Stay here," he commanded, though his tone carried concern rather than command. In a flash, he disappeared into the darkness, leaving Ilara alone with the moon and the whispering wind. Her heart pounded. She had grown used to Kale's presence, his guidance, and his silent strength. To be left alone, even briefly, reminded her of how much she had come to rely on him, not in weakness but in trust. When Kale returned, his expression was calm, though his eyes burned with intensity. "All is well," he said, "but remember, danger can appear where you least expect it. Trust your instincts, Ilara. They are sharper than you realize." Ilara nodded, feeling a surge of confidence. She was learning, growing, and adapting. No longer was she the timid maid who had been bullied by her family. She was becoming a figure of quiet power, someone who could navigate the shadows and stand tall even in the presence of darkness. As the weeks turned into months, Ilara's transformation continued. She learned to read the intentions of others, to move silently, and to recognize threats before they became danger. Kale's lessons were harsh at times, but always fair, and always designed to bring out her potential. And yet, even as she grew stronger, a question lingered in her mind: her family. What would they think if they knew the maid they had mocked and belittled was now treasured by the most powerful being in the kingdom? Would they regret their cruelty, or dismiss it as insignificant? One night, as she gazed out over the castle's spires, the wind carrying the faint scent of distant forests, she whispered to herself, "I will show them, not with anger but with strength and grace. They will see what they have lost." From the shadows, Kale watched her, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Yes," he murmured, "and in doing so, you will also find your own redemption and mine as well." And so, Ilara continued her journey, a maid no longer defined by ridicule or fear, but by courage, wisdom, and the spark of power that burned brightly within her. The Vampire King's treasure, yes, but more than that, a force to be reckoned with, a light in the darkness, and a soul ready to reclaim its destiny. The night was alive with whispers, shadows, and secrets, and somewhere far below, the faint echo of her family's regret began to stir, though they did not yet understand the true extent of the change that had begun. Ilara's story was far from over. The castle, Kale, and the mysteries of the night awaited her, and she was ready. The castle slept under a velvet sky, the moonlight glinting off its black towers like silver fire. Ilara stood on the balcony of her chamber, her hair fluttering in the night wind, thinking of the life she had left behind. The memory of her family's cruel words, their constant judgment, and their endless favoritism toward her siblings no longer made her ache with pain. Instead, it filled her with determination. She had changed. The timid maid they had mocked was no longer the same. She had learned the arts of perception, patience, and careful strength from Kale, the Vampire King. She had learned to move silently, to watch, and to act with precision. Most importantly, she had discovered that her courage and intelligence were treasures, far more valuable than she had ever imagined. Kale appeared beside her silently, as he often did, like a shadow that had taken form. "The night suits your spirit," he said softly, his red eyes reflecting the moonlight. "You have grown, Ilara. I see it in your posture, in your thoughts, and in your resolve." Ilara looked at him, a small smile forming on her lips. "I have had a good teacher," she replied, "though I sometimes wonder if I am ready for what comes next." Kale's expression was unreadable as always. Readiness is tested not in comfort but in challenge. Soon you will face trials that will measure more than skill. They will measure your heart, your judgment, and your courage. Are you prepared for that? Ilara's heart beat faster. She did not know what he meant, but the thought of proving herself, to Kale, to herself, and perhaps to her family, filled her with a strange excitement. "I will try," she said firmly. Kale's lips curved into a faint, approving smile. "Try, yes. But do not forget, courage without wisdom is dangerous. Learn to balance them." The next morning, Kale introduced her to a wing of the castle she had never explored. It was filled with other treasures, objects of power, ancient artifacts, and tomes that whispered secrets of forgotten worlds. But Ilara's attention was caught by a large mirror framed with intricate silver designs. "This is no ordinary mirror," Kale explained. "It reflects not only the physical form but also the spirit within. Look carefully, Ilara. What do you see?" Ilara stepped closer, her eyes fixed on the reflection. At first, she saw the familiar face of a young woman who had endured ridicule and neglect. Then, as she focused, she saw something more. A figure strong and confident, standing tall, with eyes that sparkled with determination and a heart that would not be broken. "I see someone stronger than I thought," she murmured. "That strength has always been within you," Kale said. "You only needed to discover it." Days turned into weeks, and Ilara's confidence grew with each passing moment. She trained diligently, practiced careful observation, and honed the skills Kale taught her. She learned to sense the intentions of those around her, and to move with precision and grace. The castle, once a place of awe and intimidation, now felt like a domain she could navigate with skill and subtle authority. And yet, one part of her life remained unresolved: her family. Though she had left them behind, the memory of their harsh words lingered. She knew that they had underestimated her, as they always had, but she also sensed that they would soon discover her transformation. When that day came, they would regret the cruelty they had shown her. Kale seemed to sense her thoughts. One evening, he led her to a chamber where the walls were covered with maps and records of distant lands. "You have learned much," he said, "but there are truths you have yet to face. There are ties from your past that will challenge you, that may test your resolve. Are you ready to confront them?" Ilara nodded, her heart steady. "I am ready," she said. "Whatever comes, I will not falter." Kale studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Very well. Soon you will see the consequences of choices made long ago, and you will have the chance to shape the future with your own hands. The next day, Alara learned that her family had sent envoys to the kingdom, claiming they had business with the Vampire King. The news reached her through whispers among the castle staff, and her heart tightened. She had imagined this day, the moment her family would see her not as the timid maid they had scorned, but as someone of power and presence. Kale noticed her reaction. "They come," he said quietly, "and you will have a choice. Face them with courage and wisdom or remain in the shadows. The decision is yours, Alara, but know this, you are no longer the same girl who lived in fear of their words." Alara took a deep breath. She felt the weight of her journey, the lessons, the training, the nights of quiet reflection, and the moments of doubt she had overcome. "I will face them," she said, "not with anger but with strength and dignity. They will see who I truly am." When the envoys arrived at the castle, her family's faces were a mixture of surprise and disbelief. The maid they had ridiculed, the girl they had ignored, now stood tall in Kale's grand hall. Her posture was confident, her gaze steady, and her presence commanding. "Who is this?" her mother whispered, her voice trembling. "She is Alara," Kale said, his tone firm, "and she is mine to guide, to protect, and to treasure. You will address her with the respect she deserves." Alara's heart swelled with a mix of satisfaction and quiet triumph. Her family's eyes widened as they realized the truth. They had lost their hold over her, and she had become someone beyond their understanding. As the meeting continued, Kale remained a silent guardian at her side, his presence a reminder of the power and protection she now commanded. Alara spoke with calm confidence, addressing her family's past actions without malice, acknowledging the wrongs they had done, and showing them that she had risen above their cruelty. Her words were measured and wise, reflecting the lessons Kale had taught her. Her family, unable to respond with insult or dismissal, were forced to confront their own failure to recognize her worth. They had underestimated her for too long, and now they faced the consequences of their bias. After the envoys departed, Kale turned to her, his expression softer than she had ever seen. "You handled that with grace and strength," he said. "You have shown not only courage but wisdom beyond your years. I am proud of you, Alara." Alara smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. She had faced her past, confronted those who had doubted her, and emerged stronger. And yet, she knew this was only the beginning. There were still challenges ahead, secrets to uncover, trials to endure, and a bond with Kale that would continue to evolve. That night, as they walked through the castle gardens, bathed in moonlight, Kale spoke of his past, revealing fragments of a time when he had trusted too easily and suffered betrayal. "I have learned," he said, "that even power is not enough to protect you from loss. But strength, courage, and wisdom, they are treasures no one can take." Alara listened intently, realizing that her journey was intertwined with his, not just as his pupil, but as a partner in a shared path of growth and transformation. She had discovered her own power, and in doing so, had begun to touch something within Kale as well. As the weeks passed, Alara continued to train, learn, and explore the depths of the castle and her own potential. She had become a figure of quiet strength, respected by those who had once doubted her, and cherished by a vampire king who had once been untouchable. Yet, even as she grew stronger, a new challenge loomed on the horizon. A rival from Kale's past, someone who had once threatened his rule, had begun to stir in the shadows, aware of Alara's presence and intrigued by the transformation she represented. The tension in the castle shifted subtly, a reminder that even in a place of power, vigilance was necessary. Alara sensed the change. Her instincts, honed through weeks of training, told her that she would soon face tests that were greater than any she had encountered. But she no longer felt fear. She felt readiness, courage, and determination. One evening, as she stood at the highest tower looking out over the moonlit lands, she whispered to herself, I will face whatever comes. I will not falter. I will not be the girl they once mocked. I am stronger than they ever imagined. From the shadows, Kale watched her, a faint smile on his lips. Indeed, he murmured, and soon the world will see what I have known for months, that the maid they dismissed is now a force beyond measure. The night stretched on, filled with whispers, shadows, and secrets, as Alara prepared for the challenges to come. Her family's regret had begun to stir, though they could not yet understand the full extent of her transformation. And far beyond the castle walls, a new presence moved in the darkness, aware of Alara, aware of Kale, and curious about the power they now shared. Alara's journey was far from over. She had faced her past and emerged stronger, but the trials ahead would test not only her strength, but the bond between her and Kale. And as the first light of dawn touched the castle towers, she felt a sense of purpose, courage, and determination that she had never known before. She was no longer the timid maid of her family's manor. She was a treasure of the Vampire King, a force of strength and wisdom, and a young woman ready to shape her own destiny. And the castle, the knight, and Kale himself waited, ready to witness the next chapter of her remarkable story. The castle rested in an unusual silence that evening, the moonlight silvering its towers and casting long shadows across the courtyards. Alara stood at the highest balcony, her cloak fluttering in the cool night air, her eyes scanning the distant lands below. The training, the lessons, the countless nights of reflection, all of it had prepared her for this moment. A presence approached behind her, quiet but unmistakable. Kale stepped out of the shadows, his red eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. "Tonight," he said softly, "you will face a challenge unlike any you have encountered before. One that will measure not just your courage but your heart and your wisdom." Alara turned to him, her expression calm but determined. "I am ready," she said. "I have learned much from you and from myself. I will not falter." Kale studied her for a long moment, a faint smile touching his lips. "Very well, then let us proceed." The challenge was not immediate in its danger, but it carried weight far heavier than any physical trial. Kale led Alara to a chamber she had never entered, a vast room where shadows twisted along the walls, and the air was thick with the scent of old magic. In the center of the room lay a table, and upon it were objects that shimmered faintly with power, ancestral artifacts, enchanted mirrors, and documents written in a language almost forgotten. "These are remnants of my past," Kale explained. "Some bring strength, others bring temptation. You must choose wisely what to use, what to trust, and what to leave behind. Your judgment tonight will show the depth of your growth." Alara stepped forward, her eyes scanning the objects carefully. She felt a thrill of recognition as she realized that her training had prepared her for this. She could sense the energy of each item, the intention behind it, and the potential consequences of touching it. As she made her selections, Kale observed silently, his expression unreadable. She did not falter, did not hesitate. Her movements were precise, confident, and guided by intuition honed over months of lessons. When she finished, Kale nodded, a rare look of approval in his eyes. "You have chosen wisely," he said, "but the trial is not yet complete. You must face one final challenge." A sudden hush fell over the room, and the shadows seemed to grow darker. From the far corner emerged figures shrouded in mist, her family. They had come, perhaps sensing her presence, perhaps drawn by curiosity or guilt. Their faces reflected surprise, confusion, and a dawning fear as they beheld the young woman standing tall before them, no longer timid, no longer afraid. Alara's heart remained steady. She had imagined this confrontation countless times, and now it had arrived. "I have something to say," she began, her voice clear and strong. "I am no longer the girl you dismissed, ridiculed, and ignored. You have underestimated me for too long, but that time has passed." Her mother's lips trembled, her father's eyes widened, and her siblings glanced nervously at one another. The power of Alara's presence was undeniable. She had grown, not only in skill and strength, but in dignity, courage, and wisdom. Kale stepped beside her, a silent pillar of support. "She is no longer yours to judge," he said firmly. "She is her own, strong and capable and worthy of respect." Alara continued, her voice unwavering. "I have learned much in this castle: courage, perception, patience, and wisdom. I have faced challenges that tested me, and I have grown beyond the girl you once knew. The mistakes you made in underestimating me have brought regret upon yourselves. But that regret cannot change the past, it can only guide the future." Her family looked at her, and for the first time they saw not a timid maid, but a woman of strength and presence. Their hearts tightened with remorse, realizing that their cruelty had forged the very person they had tried to diminish. Kale spoke again, his voice calm yet commanding. "Regret is natural, but so is growth. Alara has taken the lessons of her past and turned them into strength. It is not her anger that defines her, but her courage, her wisdom, and her heart." Alara's gaze softened slightly. "I do not seek vengeance," she said. "I seek understanding and a recognition of who I am now. I hope that you can learn from this as I have learned from you in part, though through difficulty, not guidance." Her family bowed their heads in shame, unable to speak. They realized that the girl they had ignored had become a force of transformation and power, and that their biased judgments had cost them the chance to support and nurture her. After a long, quiet moment, Kale extended his hand toward Alara. "You have faced your past with grace and strength. You have learned your own power and earned your place here. The final step is to accept it fully, not just in skill, but in heart." Alara took his hand, feeling warmth and reassurance flow through her. She realized that her journey was not only about proving herself to others, but about embracing her own worth, her own courage, and her own destiny. The castle seemed to respond to her presence, the shadows softening, the air feeling lighter as though acknowledging the transformation that had occurred. She no longer felt fear or doubt, only confidence, purpose, and a deep sense of belonging. As the moonlight bathed the chamber in silver, Kale spoke softly. "You are no longer merely my student, nor merely the maid of your family. You are a treasure of the night, a force of change, and a partner in the shaping of what comes next." Alara looked at him, her eyes reflecting both awe and affection. "I am ready," she said, "ready to face the future, to embrace my strength, and to step into the life I have earned." Kale's expression softened, revealing a rare vulnerability. "And I am ready to trust you, not just with knowledge or skill, but with my own heart. You have brought light to the shadows that long surrounded me." They stood together in the chamber, the castle alive with quiet energy, the night holding its breath in anticipation. Outside, the distant lands glimmered under the moon, vast and full of possibility. Alara's family, though still filled with remorse, watched silently. They understood, at last, the depth of the person they had underestimated. And in that understanding came a quiet recognition. The maid they had scorned had become something far greater than any of them had imagined. Kale finally spoke again, his voice carrying a warmth and authority that commanded attention. "You have faced trials, discovered strength, and embraced your destiny. And yet, the story is only beginning. The bonds you have formed, the lessons you have learned, and the courage you now carry will guide the chapters yet to be written." Alara felt a deep sense of fulfillment, a rare harmony between past and present, fear and courage, doubt and certainty. She had not only reclaimed herself from the shadows of neglect and cruelty, but she had also touched the heart of the Vampire King, helping him find a measure of redemption and trust he had long believed lost. As the night stretched on, the castle seemed to hum with life, the whispers of ancient walls echoing with approval. Shadows danced gently along the corridors, and the air shimmered with the quiet magic of recognition and transformation. Alara turned once more to her family, who now seemed smaller, humbled, and regretful. "Learn from this," she said gently. Do not underestimate those you judge, for strength and courage often hide where you least expect them. Respect is earned, and it is never too late to understand that truth. Her family bowed their heads, tears glistening in their eyes. They had learned their lesson too late to change the past, but perhaps soon enough to honor the future. Kale placed a hand lightly on her shoulder. The night has been long, the trials many, and the lessons hard, but you have emerged triumphant, Elara. Remember this. Your strength lies not only in what you have learned, but in the wisdom with which you wield it. Elara nodded, feeling a profound sense of peace. She had faced her fears, confronted her past, grown in power and courage, and earned the respect of both her mentor and the family who had once scorned her. Together, she and Kale walked through the castle, their steps quiet and measured. The corridors, once daunting and shadowed, now seemed welcoming, a reflection of the transformation that had taken place within her. From the highest towers to the moonlit gardens, Elara felt the weight of her journey and the promise of what lay ahead. She had reclaimed her life, her confidence, and her destiny. She was no longer a maid overlooked and undervalued. She was a force of strength, a treasure of the Vampire King, and a young woman ready to embrace the world with courage and grace. And as dawn approached, painting the sky with gentle hues of gold and rose, the castle seemed to glow with quiet approval. Elara stood with Kale, looking out over the lands that stretched beyond the horizon, a sense of purpose and triumph filling her heart. Her family, humbled and filled with regret, would remember this night. But more importantly, Elara would remember the journey that had brought her here, the path of courage, wisdom, and transformation that had changed her life forever. The story of the maid who had been bullied and ignored had reached its powerful conclusion. She had faced darkness, embraced her strength, and discovered a destiny far greater than she had ever imagined. And in doing so, she had left an indelible mark on the heart of a vampire king and on the world around her. Elara's journey was complete, but the echoes of her courage, wisdom, and transformation would resonate through the castle and the kingdom for years to come. She had become the treasure she had always deserved to be, and those who had once doubted her would never forget the power and grace she had revealed.